With $1.5 million, you can buy a castle in France with 12 bedrooms and a moat. That same money in Toronto gets you a semi-detached teardown with a basement you cannot stand up in. Canada is not building an economy. It is running a Ponzi scheme where citizens sell houses to each other at higher prices. The math does not lie, and it is about to collapse. Canada's so-called prosperity rests on a simple trick: pour almost every spare dollar into housing and hope the bubble never pops. Between 2017 and 2021, over 40% of all capital investment in Canada was swallowed by residential construction and housing-related industries. Not technology, not new factories, not energy transition, just more drywall, granite countertops, and towers of glass. For every dollar the country could have put toward building a future, nearly half got funneled into building, flipping, or financing places to sleep. This is not just a quirk of national taste, it is a systemic obsession. In the US, even at the peak of their own housing mania, residential investment never broke 30% of capital formation. Germany, a country famous for solid engineering and affordable rentals, sits comfortably below that mark. But in Canada, housing is the black hole at the centre of the economy, pulling in savings, investment and ambition, and spitting out higher prices as its only product. The result is a country where the act of buying or selling a home is treated as a career move, where banks, pension funds, and even government programs line up to feed the monster because nothing else promises such easy returns, at least as long as new buyers keep showing up. This is not economic growth, it is economic suicide by asset inflation. The math does not lie. When 40% of your nation's capital is trapped in bricks and drywall, you're not building wealth, you're just building the next Marx prison cell. Debt mountain and wealth illusion. Meet the composite Canadian homeowner, a walking balance sheet with $3.07 trillion in household debt strapped to their back. Mortgage statements arrive like monthly ransom notes, while the official story claims net worth is soaring. But peel back the numbers and almost 3/4 of that so-called wealth is locked in the family home, illiquid, untouchable, and only valuable if the next buyer shows up with even more borrowed money. The average debt-to-income ratio sits at 175%, meaning for every dollar earned, there is $1.75 owed. In any other context, this would be called insolvency, not prosperity. The real engine is not wages or productivity. It is the house itself, doubling as both piggy bank and ATM. Home equity lines of credit have become the nation's favourite financial drug. Canadians now owe $170 billion on home equity lines of credit alone, using their homes as collateral for cars, renovations, and sometimes just to pay the bills. It is a feedback loop. Rising prices make people feel richer, so they borrow more, which props up prices, which justifies even more borrowing. The illusion works as long as prices keep climbing, but if the music stops, the only thing left is a mountain of debt and a house nobody can afford to sell. For millions, the dream of home ownership has become a high-wire act balancing on low rates and blind faith. One shock, an interest rate spike, a job loss, a wave of forced sales, and the whole pyramid starts to wobble. Household fragility is not a bug in the system. It is the main feature, hidden behind a wall of rising appraisals and mortgage approvals stamped, approved by banks who know the government will bail them out if gravity returns. Dirty money loves a good bubble, and Canada's real estate market has been the friendliest laundromat in the world. In just 1 year, $7.4 billion in suspicious funds washed through British Columbia alone, with casino cash moving from duffel bags into luxury condos. Call it snowwashing, the art of turning black market profits into sparkling white deeds, all while local politicians and bankers feign surprise. Every dollar that slips through the cracks is another bid pushing up prices, another family priced out, another neighbourhood hollowed by absentee owners and empty glass towers. But the rot is not just from offshore. The real enabler sits in Ottawa, wearing a suit and a polite smile. The Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation, CMHC, was supposed to keep the dream of home ownership alive. Instead, it has become the dealer at the casino, quietly relaxing lending standards and ensuring ever riskier mortgages. Need a longer amortization? No problem. Want to stretch the definition of affordable until it snaps? CMHC's evolving benchmarks have moved from the old 30% of income rule to a sliding scale that now treats 40%, even 50%, as the new normal. No official memo admits this, but the market knows. If buyers cannot afford it, just change the definition until they can. Meanwhile, the agency's own reports warn of a housing shortfall that has ballooned to nearly 5 million homes by the mid-2030s. CMHC's projections land at 4.8 million homes needed to restore any sense of balance, a gap so wide it is measured in generations, not years. Yet every policy tweak, every insurance backstop, every wink at laundered cash keeps the game going. The system is not broken, it's working exactly as designed, for everyone but the people who actually need a place to live. Mortgage delinquencies are climbing faster than any time in a generation. By the summer of 2025, Canada's national delinquency rate hit 0.23%, a 21% jump in just 12 months. That sounds small until you remember $3 trillion in household debt is balanced on that razor's edge. In Toronto's condo market, delinquencies spiked 35% year over year, with investor-owned units leading the charge. The first cracks are showing, not in some distant suburb, but in the glass towers that were supposed to be untouchable. Developers, once the high priests of the boom, are now staring down insolvency. The pre-construction playbook demanded 70% of units be sold before a single shovel hit dirt, often to investors banking on endless appreciation. But when new buyers dry up, the math flips. Projects stall, financing vanishes, and half-finished skeletons litter the skyline. In Northern Ontario, one developer watched 407 units go straight into receivership, leaving buyers, trades, and lenders holding the bag. Across the country, pre-sale buyers are discovering their deposits do not guarantee a roof, just a place in the creditor queue. Meanwhile, the demand side refuses to blink. In 2023, 1.2 million newcomers arrived, more than the population of Saskatchewan, each one needing somewhere to live. The population Ponzi keeps the wheels spinning, but it is gasoline on the fire for anyone searching for a rental, let alone a starter home. Even as immigration policy tightens, the backlog is baked in, and supply cannot keep up. The result is a market stretched to the snapping point, with delinquencies rising, developers toppling, and a tidal wave of demand crashing on the same shrinking shore. The warning lights are flashing, but the system just keeps doubling down, betting tomorrow's buyers will save today's mistakes. CMHC, the government's own housing oracle, finally raised its voice in 2024. The agency's latest outlook reads, less like a market update and more like a distress signal. Canada's economy is now dragging a ball and chain made of overpriced real estate. The numbers are not subtle. Over the past decade, total factor productivity, a fancy way of measuring how much smarter and more efficient a country gets, has dropped by 9%. That's not a blip, it is a slow-motion collapse. For every would-be innovator packing up for San Francisco, another Canadian is left wondering why their paycheck barely covers rent. The fertility rate has slumped to 1.26 children per woman, a record low as young families quietly admit defeat. Even CMHC, once the cheerleader for homeownership, is now warning the housing obsession is not just pricing people out, it is choking off the country's future. The bailout machine is already humming. In 2024 alone, the federal government guaranteed $38.8 billion in new mortgage-backed securities, paper promises stacked on top of over-leveraged homes. When defaults hit, the flow is simple. Banks get paid, insurers get covered, and the taxpayer is left holding the bag. This is not just a one-time rescue, it is a conveyor belt of risk, quietly shifting the fallout from reckless lending onto the public ledger. There are only two exits from this dead end. One is the American way, a spectacular crash, forced sales, and a generation's savings vaporized. The other is the slow suffocation of Japanification. Decades of stagnation, zombie mortgages, and a population too broke or demoralized to even try. Either way, the bill lands in the mailbox of a generation that never signed up for the game. Today, Canada's economy hangs on the hope that home prices will never fall, because if they do, the entire pyramid shudders. This is not growth. It is roulette with bricks and futures. The math does not lie. And sooner or later, reality always comes to collect. Drop your thoughts below.